Hi, so we've made some progress and we've taken some steps backwards. Backwards, you say? Well, let me show you. The first build was coming along nicely as I showed you before. I had an orbiter assembled and was ready to have it be Challenger. And somehow I had the impression that Challenger got refitted with the drag chute. So I had started cutting back into the tail here, of course, cleverly after I glued it on already, to make the tail mod. Made a little saw cut, added a little piece on the bottom, and was gonna putty that up and be ready to go. So then I was continuing my research on the decal work because I've got some sets of decals and 3 different orbiters to do. One of them has clear parts on top of the wing, so I wasn't going to put tile decals on that. I wouldn't see much point to that. So anyway, digging around, and I'm realizing, oh crap, Challenger did not have the drag chute. And so this is now going to be Atlantis for the mirror model. So that was kind of disappointing, but that's fine. I can just use it for that. Playing around with a little more putty around the windows and touching that up. And then I got to the point where I glued in the payload bay liner, which is going to be covered up with something different. And I popped on the payload bay doors. And I'm noticing that when you put them in, and I don't have that now because I've already modified them, they don't fold down all the way. They're supposed to fold down to something like this. Let me put this down so you can all see this. They're supposed to fold pretty much flat. You know, if you look at photos, pretty much all the way down. But with the hinge points inside, it only goes to, you know, about halfway up here. Just not right. So I decided that what's going to happen, well, actually, you can see it on here. I started another one. You know, it goes to about this much. And they need to go, and because of the hinges on the inside, it won't go. So it needs to be down here somewhere. And the only way to do that is to glue it directly to the outside of the fuselage. So that means I'm not going to use these hinges so they can get snapped off. So they're going to be gone. And so that means I can putty the whole thing in here and create some better decal on the bulkheads. So this now becomes Atlantis, which means I take one of my other kits that I had available and I've started building that up. I got the wings and the fuselage together. I'll just go through that same process. So that's Atlantis and Challenger. And meanwhile, on the Dragon kit, which is just gonna be a generic, probably a Discovery of some sort, I've been taking all these little interior parts and for the cockpit area, painting them up. This is the cockpit. It's got all these little pieces are separate. And I just kind of painted that in off-white. Inside the ohms pods, I found some pictures that show kind of a metallic finish on them. And there's blankets around the whole thing. So these tanks have a metallic finish. And I basically hand brushed with some Vallejo metallics. Everything got started with an aluminum. Then I hit some gold and bronze over these to give them those colors. I think that looks pretty nice. And then again, it's going to be under a clear part. So it doesn't have to be real perfect. Found somebody had a homemade, I forget where I found these. This is part of someone's set of shuttle decals, which had cockpit decals. So I scaled them down and printed them myself. And these are going to be ready to go. But meanwhile, I had been painting a little of the interior as well here. You can see that. It's pretty detailed. It's got a little raised detail on it, but I'll mix it up with this paint and some detail. The forward RCS, again, similarly, just I couldn't find any real pictures of this, so it's just going to be a mix of chromate green, some metallic-y colors for the nozzles and tanks. So that's coming along. So kind of tricky working on 3 kits at once. One of the other activities I've been spending a lot of time on is just doing research on the color scheme. So one thing I found is that, for example, Atlantis has at least 3 distinct, call it color patterns. It had an early, if you look at particularly the top of the wings, It had an early pattern with kind of a zigzag between the soft blankets and the flat panels. And then later it took a year off between flights, and they changed the pattern, and they also changed the elevon flaps. These covers, there's covers on the elevon flaps on top of the wings. I think they went from dark black to a white outline, and there's most of the kits, most of the aftermarket decals that can help you with that. And so I found out when that occurred, and then later they changed the painting on the wings from the old NASA worm to the older NASA meatball, and moved the flag around and stuff like that on the wingtip. So there's 3 different patterns on the later shuttles, and I'm pretty sure you're going to find the same thing for Discovery and Endeavour. But so I'm having to research what pattern is on the mission I'm doing. So, and then trying to figure out, okay, now which decals are the closest match to that. So all that is took some time here the last couple days, just researching that so I can make sure I've got the configuration straight for those missions. And probably this means I need to update my Space in Miniature book, or have a supplement out to cover all those later changes which came out after I put the book together many years ago. Anyway, that's where we are. Next steps will be continuing to rebuild an orbiter for Challenger. And again, try to do that one first because it's going to be simpler. It won't have all the photo etchers. I'm still holding off for Atlantis and Mir. And again, one of the other things in the research was figuring out, again, who's got the parachute, the drag chute compartment, which missions are the radiators deployed, because those radiator parts are way out of scale on the Revell kit. And so I'm trying to figure that out, and figure out things like, oh, the Mir missions didn't use the remote manipulator arm. So that's another thing, you know, all these different configuration details the information's out there. It's a little hard to dig up sometimes. Anyway, that's where we are, and stay tuned for another installment soon. Thanks.